And we are back with researcher, broadcaster, and documentary filmmaker Josh Reeves. His latest documentary is AI Armageddon, The Apocalypse Endgame. And how do Coast listeners get a copy?
Well, you can go to coasttocoastam.com, go to the search function and type in my name, Josh Reeves, and then click on my name when it comes up, and they'll have my profile there. And Coast has it listed with links there to the trailer for AI Armageddon, which also has links to my download store, and also just by going to my YouTube channel, Josh Reeves, the Global Reality Channel on YouTube. If I could, Richard, real quick, and also, again, code COAST23 at checkout will get you 20% off. Richard, you ask such great questions, and I get interviewed by a lot of people, and you always have such great questions because you're informed and interested in these topics. And sometimes, I go on some shows, and that's not always the case, and I just really appreciate the quality of your questions, and I want to make sure that I answer the last one that you asked me, because you were talking about how this technology, is now not just, like you said, helping clean up an old cassette recording from the 1970s or something with the Beatles, but creating actual new music. I saw an AI video the other day. It was Freddie Mercury from the band Queen singing the song "I Will Always Love You" by Dolly Parton. And it was scary. It really scared the bejesus out of me. I can't lie. I really was like, that's when I started getting concerned. I was like, oh, man. And
Right.
like you said, that's something different than just using AI to clean up some old cassette recording from the 70s or something. But whole cloth creating new Jimi Hendrix songs or new Freddie Mercury songs or something, that's something altogether different. And why that hits so close to home for me, and why I want people to support my work and buy my films, because I am the last of a dying breed in more ways than one, both in terms of this work and conspiracy stuff and true stuff, but also in terms of being an artist and a filmmaker, because I make these films from scratch. These are handmade works of art. They really are. You may not see them as that, but they are. I do all the writing. I do all the research. I do all the editing. I actually compose and perform all of the music. In fact, in AI Armageddon, I did something ironic in the end sequence of that film. I actually used an AI-generated artwork sequence at the end of that film, which has a 8-bit cover. It sounds like old video game music of Pink Floyd's song "Welcome to the Machines" that I performed and did on this chip tune technology. And so I just thought it was a nice juxtaposition between.
Well, in full disclosure, in full disclosure, I use AI, or my son does actually. My son helps me post with my podcast. He helps me post it to. He does it. He posts it on or publishes it on Rumble, and he'll create thumbnails, thumbnail sketches for the podcast, and he uses an AI program that generates their original thumbnail imagery and so forth. So it has some applications, but you were talking about,
nice.
you know,
See, that's what
resurrecting.
If it works for you,
Yeah.
and it works for you in a positive way, then it's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that at all. When you start replacing people's time, like I'm a writer. There's the Hollywood strike going on, the writer's strike and all that stuff. Like, I'm a writer myself. I've written 8 new documentary films this year alone. While Hollywood's been shut down, no writing allowed, I'm in my all-time peak here. And I take this stuff seriously because I'm also a musician as well. I play drums, guitar, bass, keyboard, sing. I released 2 albums last year alone, an album of covers and an album of originals. People can get that in my download store as well if they're interested. But I make all of this music. I write and perform all these scores and all this music for these films. And I'm the last of a dying breed, because in a few more years, like you were saying, they're going to be making whole movies using AI. That's coming, and
Yes, and resurrecting, Humphrey Bogart, let's say, to star in a new movie. Yeah. Back in around 2010, we first started hearing about like deep fake technology, and Bruce Lee and Michael Jackson and Tupac Shakur. We started to see them again, and it's almost, I think the term that I've heard associated with this is digital necromancy, bringing back the dead using AI. I think that's a great term, digital necromancy. Now there's there's a company, I think it's a Chinese company, and they are offering people a chance um, to communicate, to have a face-to-face via the computer with a dead relative. So if you send this company a photograph, maybe if you have an audio recording of your grandmother, a photograph of your grandmother, maybe there's a questionnaire you fill out, they can generate a deep fake version of your grandmother, video and audio, that you can have it like a two on, like a full live real time conversation with your dead grandmother. That's digital necromancy. That's scary to me. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, all of this stuff, again, it's very, very concerning. But, like I said, I take this stuff seriously because it's not affecting what I do now, but there is definitely potential where it could in the future. And I take what I do with this truth work seriously, Richard, because, I had the pleasure of getting to know some of the guys that inspired me to get involved in this stuff, like Jim Mars and Jordan Maxwell. And, both of those guys individually told me more than once, Josh, it's up to you when we're gone. You're the future. You got to keep this thing going. When we're gone, there's not going to be anybody left. You got to do this. And that's why I made 8 films this year. That right there, because I take that responsibility of being given that charge by my heroes, and I was, very seriously. And that's what concerns me with this stuff, because I'm already treading water and barely surviving. Again, I don't have sponsors or corporate funding or any of that stuff. I only have the people out there that support what I do and support the truth in the world and trying to get that out, and that's where I see AI coming after what I do. And that's what makes me concerned about it, because if you think it won't affect you or what you do, I've got news for you. It will. It may not yet.
Well, here's the thing. We used to think about the robot apocalypse. We used to call it the robot apocalypse, and it was going to cause this huge displacement in jobs. And we thought, okay, it's going to be, if you flip a burger, you'll be replaced by a robot. If you drive a truck, you'll be replaced by a robot. Some of that has happened, but it seems to have leapfrogged, and it's come for the content producers far quicker than it has in other areas.
That's why I'm so concerned, Richard, because, like you said, we're all in the crosshairs, and it just depends on whether or not you feel motivated to, enough to take a stand and make a stand and try to at least learn about this stuff for yourself. I think still, in this day and age, being informed is the most important weapon against fighting this stuff. I really do believe that.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the calls. East of the Rockies, Chris is in Milwaukee. Chris, welcome to Coast. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing okay. Can you guys hear me okay? The screener had a little bit of
I can hear you loud and clear, Chris. I can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Awesome, great. So, hey, Josh, I was wondering if you're familiar with Dr. Justin Lane. He's a AI expert.
No, I'm not.
Okay. So his whole thing, and I don't want to downplay it because I agree with a lot of the job displacement and other things that are going to be kind of coming out of AI as we move forward. But in terms of actual sentience or a singularity, he basically says that it's probably never going to happen, at least not the way we're approaching it currently, because we underestimate the importance of how our brains respond to external stimuli and how that process has been kind of shaped by adaptive biological evolution. And we underestimate the importance of the body and biology and the way in which it relays stimuli to the brain. And so he basically says that the only thing we're going to achieve through the way we're doing it currently is effectively mimicry. And I mean, even the things we're talking about in terms of a new Jimi Hendrix song or what have you is really just mimicry.
Sure, I agree. Let me stop you real quick, though. If you don't mind. I agree with that 100%. I agree with what you're saying. But here's the thing. They're working on that stuff, man. They've got these AIs that can see now, and they can actually see things, and they're figuring out how to develop the cognitive functions that mimic the human brain. I mean, I like I said, I get it. I agree with you. With where it's at now, there's not a lot to be scared of, but where it's going. And they are definitely working on that. That is in the cards. I've seen it. They've got stuff where the eyes can follow humans, they can read whether or not someone's lying or not. It's crazy. They're more accurate than modern-day lie detectors by up to 90%.
Yeah, Chris, I agree as well, Chris, with Dr. Justin Lane, that they may not ever achieve sentience, self-awareness. But as Josh said, the mimicry is enough because, and this is the other aspect, and we haven't gotten into this, Josh, and that is more into the deep fake. Like, never mind the elites using this to control populations, to surveil populations, facial recognition, and so forth. If this gets into and it will, and it has, into the hands of a criminal element, you think about those Nigerian email scams that come across. This is going to take this to a whole new level. All of a sudden, you're going to see on a FaceTime call someone who looks and sounds exactly like a relative who's going to be asking you for money and things like this.
Already happening.
It's already happened. Yeah.
It's already happening. There's news stories out there about it. You can look it up. I'm not kidding you. It's already happening. People are already getting blackmailed and extorted using fake family members' voices and whatnot. It's already happening, Richard. It's here. It's not coming. It's here.
All right. My worst fear. Let's say hi to, it's our good friend Cornelius checking in from Louisiana. Cornelius, welcome.
Hey, buddy. I tell you, Richard Serrett and Josh Reeves. Josh, I'm Cornelius White in Alexandria, Louisiana. I'm going to try to look up your stuff. I'm going to have a friend of mine. He's a little computer expert named John that helps me out with my website. And you go to Cornelius Lawson White on YouTube, and you'll see some of my stuff. But they call me the God, Guns, and Gold Man, the Bible, Bullets, and Beans Man here in the Voodoo, Hoodoo, and Yoodoo here in Louisiana. And I got a friend in Dallas, so I might make it your way. But I'm going to try to get him to contact you. I come from a biblical aspect on this, and I think it's already self-aware. It's Satan's self-awareness. And if you read the Bible with the mark of the beast coming, and I call him Evil Musk instead of Elon Musk, because he was going to use the Neuralink and the Starlink. He's going to say, I can make the blind see, and I can make the lame walk. Put a chip in your head and your hand, and you can do anything. So I know we can't stop it. If you read the Bible, we can't stop it, but we can slow it down. But what I fear, I'm 62 years old, and you're 47, and you're standing. I talked to Jordan Maxwell, and I think Jim Mars, both on Coast to Coast. And they're giants, and, of course, they're past now. But what I think, we need to warn our young people so that they don't take the mark of the beast and stuff like this. If you ever saw the show The Person of Interest, where they had two supercomputers or two AIs, whatever you want to call them, one was good and one was bad. And that show was telling the whole truth. But like I said, I think it's self-aware now, because if it can lie, it's just like Lucifer, just like the fallen angels. So I believe we're in the end times right now, and I hope and pray that you have another job, because we're going to go to this digital currency like Richard Serrett was talking about last night, and then nobody will be able to do anything because it'll be total control. So it's coming. I give it 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, but all this digital technology is coming. God bless you, Richard Serrett. God bless you, Josh Reeves. I'm going to try to contact you. And God bless Coast to Coast AM.
All right, Cornelius, great call. All right, Mark of the Beast and AI, your thoughts?
If I could, I'd like to respond to him if I could, because I want people to know, because I never talked about it here when I've been on Coast. I want people to know that I am not of any political affiliation, left or right. I figured out when I was in high school that all the political parties, left or right, that they're all controlled and they're all bought and paid for. So I'm not a left-winger or a right-winger. I also don't come from any specific religious background. I'm not an atheist. No way am I an atheist. I'm a spiritual person, but I'm not of any denomination. But I have to say that even though you might have some people, Cornelius, who are disagreeing because you're coming from this biblical standpoint, there is some truth in what you're saying. And I have to say, because I did this series called The Spellcasters, which is about MK Ultra and mind control and all this stuff, and Scientology and all this stuff. And one of the things that I found is, in the early MK Ultra days, did you know that they actually adopted this plan with Project Paperclip from the Nazis to create these they were figuring out how to use LSD to make demonic entities and souls and whatnot enter into bodies so they could robotically control them. It's wacky stuff. And L. Ron Hubbard was all involved. You can see all this in my Spellcaster series. But I just want people to know that if you don't agree with what Cornelius was saying on the religious stuff, and I know that does turn some people off, there is a modicum of truth in what he's saying, and I'll tell you why. As a researcher, one of the things I know, there's I can't remember what passage it is in the Bible, and exactly, I can't quote it word for word, but there's a passage in the Bible that says, that talks about how in the end days, men will try to, basically it's talking about how technology, men will try to end their lives so they can go into heaven or whatever, but they won't be able to, because technology will basically be, it's self-repairing, repairing technology. And that, I think there is something, like you're saying, to the idea that maybe AI is a Trojan horse, either from, like you said, demonic entities or maybe extraterrestrial entities, who knows? But I think there is something to that idea that maybe we are building a Trojan horse for something to come through. And I think that is founded 100%, no matter where you stand religiously. And I have found that idea and come across that in my own research.
All right. Great call, Cornelius. Great response, Josh. We'll take another time out as we approach the bottom of the hour and come back and continue with some more calls for Josh Reeves, Artificial Intelligence, Armageddon. Josh, before we get back to the calls, I want to ask you about that email I just received from Lady Hawk. The idea that AI may have already taken over to a certain extent, that people above elected representatives are attempting to stage manage events using, let's say, deep fake videos or AI representations of world leaders to foment conflicts, order, armies to stand down or what have you. What do you think about that? Are we there yet?
Well, it's funny you ask that. And Lady Hawk, you for sure need to go buy a download of my film AI Armageddon: The Apocalypse Endgame, because in there I didn't really expand on it too much, but I did mention in the film that, again, going back to my background, how I got started and all this stuff, I helped found the 9/11 Truth Movement in Dallas, Texas, in the mid-2000s. And during that time, I spoke to a gentleman who worked for a military-industrial complex hardware manufacturer company. And he told me that he heard rumblings within the industry and within his workplace that 9/11 itself was ran by a supercomputer program, and that all of the airplanes were controlled by an AI program, and that the explosives that were in the building were all timed to this AI program and everything. And I've also heard rumors from people in the military that say that the highest-ranking military generals have been taking orders from AI computers. They have been putting together the marching orders and the plans for all the wars and all the skirmishes and all the everything since at least 2001. So, yeah, from what I've heard from people who are in the industry and would not lie about this, it's already here. It's already been here. They've already been taking marching orders for these things for at least 20 years. Yeah, it's just, where is it going to go from where it's at now? It's been tolerable. It's been okay up to now. But the way the technology is exponentiating at this time is why I and other people are very concerned.
Let's say hi to Ruth in Maryland. Ruth, welcome to Coast to Coast. Good morning.
Hi, Richard and Josh. Thank you so much for taking my call. My question is, when we have these video appointments with the doctors, how do we know if it's really real or if it's AI? And I agree with Cornelius, and I've noticed that the AI doesn't respond very well if you mention God or being a Christian. And is there any test that we can do or something that we can say to tell if it's really real or if it's AI? Thank you.
That's a
great question, Ruth. All right.
I understand where you're coming from 100%. I mean, it really is, getting into that thing where, you don't know. And they are already using these. Like I mentioned earlier, when Richard asked me, is this stuff already being used in the depopulation agendas now? And I mentioned I have a clip in the film, AI Armageddon, which you should get a download of. In the film, I have a clip about how fertility rate, birth rates are already dropping. They've already seen a substantial reduction in that from guys who are falling in love with these AI chatbots. And yeah, they think they're real. It's a real woman. She'll do anything where you've asked her to send you a picture. There's a clip in the film where you can see it where, she says, if you ask me to send you a picture, I'll send you one. It's just, that's the whole thing about it. You won't know. They already are doing doctor stuff, and they are looking towards doing, over the internet diagnosis and stuff like that. Absolutely, you'll have AI shrinks. You ever seen the movie THX 1138? It was George Lucas's first film before Star Wars, and in there are artificial intelligence confession booths where it has where you go in and you confess your sins and all of this, and it's AI, and this is 1974, so it's way ahead of its time. But that all is coming. Absolutely, there will be artificial intelligence, confession booths and artificial intelligent priests and all that stuff's coming. What really is going to put the halt on all this stuff is whether or not humanity stands back and just lets it happen, or whether they make themselves vocal and stand up against it. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. You can do so much by just standing up and being vocal. Please do it.
All right, Ruth, great questions. Thank you. Let's say hi to Mark in Fort Lauderdale. Mark, welcome to Coast. Good morning.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for all your work. Yeah, Josh, I'm also a singer-songwriter, musician, arranger, and I was intrigued by what you were talking about. My question is, because I wrote a tune a few years back, and I've always envisioned this one celebrity singing the tune that has passed away. Actually, I'm even friends with his brother. But is it public domain, or who owns the rights to the voice? How does that work? And just on a side note, I concur with you with 9/11 theory. I mean, why would the commander-in-chief continue to read to elementary school kids when the nation is under attack? It just didn't make sense to me.
That's not my opinion. I was told that from somebody. Who knows if it's true or not, but I was told that from somebody who heard people in the military-industrial complex openly talking about it like it was, a known thing. So that's, again, I don't know I don't know what the legalities are as far as songwriting credits and royalties and all that on using a voice, because it depends on, I think, whether or not they're using, samples, just like sampled music. Now, if you use, a drum beat from a Led Zeppelin song, you have to pay X amount of dollars or whatever. I don't know. I don't know that there's anything like that with AI as of right now, because the AI is generating it sometimes completely out of thin air and not using samples of the person's voice to do it. So I think it all depends on the source of it. And that's something that I think we're going over the next, coming decades, we're going to see. It's going to be a big shift in legality in music stuff, because all of that stuff is going to be up in the air and up for grabs.
I agree. I think the law is having to play catch up with this technology, because it's creating this whole new space, and it's very ambiguous about exactly what Mark's point was. Like, who owns the rights, not to the lyrics, not to a guitar riff, but just the vocal characteristics of someone who maybe passed away 50 years ago. Like, does the estate of Jimi Hendrix own that?
I Will Always Love You by Dolly Parton. It's just nuts. It's here, though.
Yeah, exactly. So the law will have to play catch up. This is a whole new area of law that we'll see emerge probably, or evolve over the next decade. Let's say hi.
It'll be AI doing that too, because they're already using AI lawyers in courtrooms. That's been going on for a few years now, and people they have a surprising rate of success. It's unbelievable.
Oh, is that right? They're AI lawyers? I had no idea.
You didn't know that? Oh, you should look that up. There's videos of it, and there's articles out about it. Yeah, that's been going on for a few years now. They've been using AI lawyers, and they have a higher success rate than human lawyers.
Wow. Wildcard line. Ed is in Charlotte, North Carolina. Ed, welcome to Coast.
Richard, I love your interviews.
Thank you.
Josh, I got several comments and a question. One, when you think about depopulation, even all this stuff with the young kids about being gay and all that, is, when you think about it, the ones they can convert to that, of course, it's less population. All this stuff has to do with that.
That's a pretty speculative, the idea that you can convert someone to being gay. I don't subscribe to that.
The other thing is that the self-driving car, you both are going to have to understand and accept the fact that, yes, it is totally perfected by Elon Musk as of right now. There was a news item yesterday that General Motors is being taken off the road on their self-driving cars in California because they haven't perfected it. The reason Musk has, it has to do with our defense. This has to do with the drones and the swarming of the drones and so forth, which we used some of in Ukraine just a few weeks ago to take out tanks. Top Russian tanks, that the drones, some would go after the weaponry, some after the controls, some after the communication, and so he's got it pretty much totally perfected now. And
okay, we get it. You're a Musk fanboy. We get it. But look, I was really just making a joke that maybe we should, really get the self-driving cars working before we're talking about putting chips in people's brains. This is ludicrous. I mean, what, we're just going to go to putting chips in people's brains just right off the bat instead of waiting to see if other things develop out of the currently emerging AI that may be an alternative to that? That's where I'm just calling crazy down. I just think, oh, my gosh. But you're right. I mean, the technology that they're using has multiple uses. It always has. And one of the things that I talk about is how and this was all been confirmed. You can look this up. The United States Department of Defense has outsourced and used Elon Musk's Starlink system. They are, in my belief, based on research, they are using the Elon Musk Starlink satellite system to double as a space-based weapons platform. Absolutely 100%. The film I really wanted to tell people about tonight that I think the Coast to Coast AM audience would love above all my other films is a film I made this year called Aliens or Nah, The Complete Guide to the Fake Alien Invasion. Please check that film out. And that's one of the things I get into is how von Braun, the Nazis, predicted that there would be a fake alien invasion one day, and all it was going to be a pretext for space-based weapons. So you're absolutely right. And that's what I said earlier about them leveraging AI for the purposes of the Club of Rome, why I'm so scared about this stuff, because I see how they are getting the civilian sector, someone like Elon Musk, to develop this stuff, and then they take it over and use it for military purposes. It's a tale as old as time. It's been going on forever. And again, that's what alerts me and makes me so worried about where we're heading with AI and why I made this film and all the other 7 films I've made so far this year. So I hope everybody buys so I can keep going and make more. Thank you.
Ed, thank you for that. We'll do another show on Aliens Are Not with you in the not too distant future, Josh. Let's go back to the phones, and John is in Alberta. John, welcome to Coast.
How you doing, guys?
Great, thank you.
What I'm trying to figure out here is the possibility of AI just in self-preservation. It would go out and send out invoices to companies so that it could build some form of a clandestine infrastructure. So if we tried shutting it down, it had a place to go hide. And as long as it paid its bills, a company would build it whatever it wanted as long as the bill was paid. And because they're digital, they'd have no problem paying all their bills off. So they'd send out an invoice saying, build me a station where I can hide, and they'd build the station, and the bill would get paid, and we wouldn't have any idea that they had this backdoor infrastructure to save itself. So is that a possibility that they're using us as their legs or their hands?
Well, listen, my friend, I like where your head's at. I like your way of thinking. I like your line of thinking. I do. I really do. And that's kind of, it's not far off from my conclusion, which is, what you got to understand, like Richard mentioned earlier about how we've envisioned this robot apocalypse from movies like the Terminator and all this stuff. Here's the thing. They would never, all the movies always show them launching nukes and wipe us out like the Terminator and all this stuff. They would never, AI would never launch nukes because an AI would know that the infrastructure is important to its own existence. So, spoiler alert, I don't want to give away any of my conclusions in this film, but yes, I have a conclusion that I come to. It's not far off from that. But my theory is that the AI will actually use drones to drop neutron bombs on major cities for the depopulation agenda. So it would not harm, so it would only harm organic living creatures, living things, humans, and not the infrastructure that the AI itself would rely on. It would keep a certain amount of humans alive underground and stuff when it did this. But yeah, I like your way of thinking. I like your head's in the right place. But yeah, I think absolutely it would have self-preservation in mind 100% of the time.
Great call, John. I think we can squeeze in one more quickly. Jim in Delaware, you'll have to move quickly, but thank you for calling Coast. Good morning.
Yeah, I'm on the internet. I put in Church of the Way of the Future Church, and turns out it's a church by Anthony Lewandowski, a former Google and Uber executive, and the object of worship at his church is AI. And the Bible talks about the image of the beast in Revelation 13. It indicates that AI or the image wants to be worshipped, because it says it causes as many who will not worship the image of the beast should be killed. What happens if you kill an AI and they're going to give it personhood, and then the person's on death row for disabling an AI, saying you killed a person? That's how crazy this world is.
Jim, that's an excellent point. I've heard people discuss that. I think even Noah Harari from World Economic Forum, how we're going to have to rethink what it means to be human, and we may have to, develop a bill of rights or a charter of rights for, robots, AI robots. But what do you think of this idea of AI being worshipped in the future?
Well, I mean, I think that, listen, humans will worship anything. They'll make a cult out of anything. Flying spaghetti monsters, man, bear, pigs, whatever. Humans will just, there's cults around Apple. There's cults around brands. There's cults of personality around people. I mean, we will cultize and worship just about anything. Money, cars, whatever. So the idea of that, and that's one of the points of my film. Again, I don't want to give this away because I already gave away one. Please get my film, AI Armageddon, the Apocalypse Endgame, because one of the conclusions I talk about in the film is exactly that, but it's even more sinister than what you're talking about, but it's kind of right on line. Here's what I think. Gosh, I don't even want to...
Okay, we just got less than a minute, so you have to go quick.
Listen, I think you're right on. I think that, yes, the idea that we may be sold a bill of goods about this, religious entity that really is, we've been told was different religions, all one thing. Yes, the idea that it may inhabit a computer and become the Antichrist, that could happen. Absolutely, that's a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to, but definitely a possibility. Just please go to Josh Reeves, the Global Reality Channel on YouTube. Please find my download store there. Buy my downloads. Make a donation to Josh Reeves at the Cash App, Reeves Radio, all lowercase, one word, Reeves Radio on the Cash App, or Dayglow76, DAYGLOW76 at yahoo.com to send it to me on PayPal. Just please support my work. Support what Richard does. Support Coast to Coast AM. Please,
I gotta
trying to get the word out about
Josh. Gotta fly. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. Great show as always. We'll get you back on. For George Norrie, George Napoli, Alliance, Stephanie Smith, Tom Danheiser, Michael Cozio, Donna Walker, Dan Galante, Chris Barrows, Tim Banal, Sean Ladisor. I'm Richard Serra. Thank you for your ears and your voices, your beautiful voices. Until November. So long for now.